Hi there, Bill Hitchcock. Welcome to the program. We have got an exciting and interesting program to get out to you. It is about, have you lost your mind yet? It's about gill nets here in North Carolina. I found it very interesting a short while ago that I heard that gill net operations, both large mesh and small mesh gill nets, we're going to have observers. I went, well, that's interesting. Is this a federal thing? Is this a state thing? What is this thing? Are they going to go out on every trip with the commercial fishermen, or just some trips? Is it all species that they're going to observe, or just some species? Is it the practice itself? I don't know. So this is what I did. I contacted the Division of Marine Fisheries, spoke with Dave Ushakow and also Matthew Doster, about this program that just started. And I also spoke with Dave Beresoff, who is a commercial fisherman out of the Cape Fear area. This new system that they have set up for this program is automated, and all the guys that are gill netters, again, whether small mesh or large mesh, have to call in before they go gill netting. So I did a Zoom call for both the division with Matthew and Dave Beresoff and Dave with the division. So we're going to cut into these interviews that I did to find out what's going on. All right, Matthew Doster and Dave Ushakow with the North Carolina Division of Marine Fisheries. There's something caught my eye. I did a little intro to this, but it caught my eye about an observer program for gill nets, and it's automated. That really caught my eye. In a nutshell, would one of you guys just say, what is this? Just in a brief nutshell, what's happening here?
How the system has worked in the past. So to schedule trips to observe commercial and recreational gillnet fishermen, we've had to call those people to attempt to schedule those trips, in addition to going on the water and also looking for trips while we're out there. In the past, this has caused a few different issues. Specifically, we have to rely on the fishermen answering their phones, returning our calls, that sort of thing. So anyways, with how this new system is going to work, basically, fishermen will call in the week before they plan to fish, telling the automated system, either by phone or online, basically how to, what days they're fishing, what mesh size categories they're fishing, either small mesh or large mesh, or both. And then from that, the system is going to randomly select certain number of fishermen based on a number of different factors, and then the fisherman is then by that Friday going to call that assigned observer, and they're going to schedule those trips for the following week.
With this observer program, is this strictly for gill nets, anchored gill nets? Matthew, go ahead.
No, we're not using the term anchored gill nets anymore. We've had a little bit of a gray areas with the definitions. So what we've done with the new Incidental Take Permit, so this observer program started because the division has an Incidental Take Permit. It requires us to monitor the gill net fisheries. And in our new permit, to try to fill the holes where we're trying to clearly define the gear, it was easier for us to define what people call run around, drop, strike. It's kind of a little bit synonymous. Some people have a little bit different definitions for those, but we have a universal definition for that gear. And then we have another definition for drift gill nets. So those two types of gill nets are exempt. So that means all gill nets except for run around, drop, strike, and drift gill nets would be required and covered under our newest Incidental Take Permit. And our newest Incidental Take Permit is what kind of required this observer trip scheduling system.
Just for simplicity's sake, the drift gill net, obviously it drifts. It's not anchored or stationary. And the wraparound is when there's a school of fish and the fisherman wraps his gill net around it and bunts it up and gets the fish. So they're not stationary. They're not left. These are attended mobile gill nets, or nets, I'll say. Correct?
Yes. So those nets are actively fished. They have relatively short soak times. So the chances that they interact with any endangered species is very low. And if they do, then it's a very short amount of time. So the impact on them is very low. So that's why they're not covered under the incidental take permit. It's the gill nets that are more stationary, longer soak times. That's more of the direct gear.
What is the actual purpose now? Will these observers, we'll get into how many observers and exactly what they're doing, but what are they counting? What are they looking for? Are they in talking with Dave Beresoff, he made comment about the trip ticket program takes care of the fish that they're keeping and selling. So you know those. So what's the observer observing?
So the observers are primarily looking for protected species interactions. So for our incidental take permit that we have through NOAA, we're specifically looking for sea turtles or sturgeon takes. So any kind of interactions with those two groups of species.
Looking at the press release from the division, the incidental take of 5 species of sea turtles and 2 species of sturgeon. Is that it?
Correct.
Is that it?
That's what the permit is specifically. That's what we're reporting back to NMFS on are those specific species, and that's what that incidental take permit covers.
Matthew, let me ask you this, and either one jump in. But Matthew, if some other critter is taken that maybe it's an endangered species, it's a heron, I don't know, something, a porpoise, would the observer report that as well? Although that's not of the 7 things that they're looking for.
Yes, so the guidance of our observers. So in addition to the endangered species we're specifically looking for, we're also recording information about general catch. So any other species like a bird, marine mammals, even American alligators, all of that stuff is covered. And actually our permit does have a reporting requirement for marine mammals and endangered American alligators as well.
Now, this is this voluntary, or do the guys that are going to go fishing, they have to notify the division, correct? Anybody that's going to be doing this type of fishing has to notify, but that doesn't mean everybody going fishing is going to have an observer, correct?
Correct.
So is it just a random draw of the hat once you get all the names and you just randomly draw?
Yeah, so the goal and the reason why the system is designed that they have to report the week before is that we want to know every single fisherman that plans to fish so that there's a truly random selection of fishermen. Instead of some observer programs will have a random selection right like in real time as they're making the phone call. But that unfortunately biases the people that call in first. So our goal is to get our entire pool of applicants that want to fish for next week, and then we'll make our random selections based on that. And we kind of touched on this a little bit, but our incidental take permit requires a minimum of 1% coverage of 1% of total small mesh trips to be observed, and a minimum of 7% of large mesh trips to be observed. So it's a very small number of trips. So despite the fact that the fishermen are calling in, most of them will not be selected.
And if they are not selected, what happens? Say, because what if DMF pulls on the Marine Patrol pulls up and says, "Let me see how do you prove that? Hey, I didn't get selected."
So unselected fishermen will receive a confirmation number. And they'll receive a confirmation number for every week portion they're not selected for. So when they say a Marine Patrol officer rolls up on them, they'll then provide that confirmation number to prove that hey, I called in for this week.
Does this cost the fisherman anything?
Could you kind of elaborate on that?
Do they have to pay for the observer?
They don't have to directly pay for the observer, no.
All right. And the other question I had, it was like 1% to 2% for small mesh gill net and 7% to 10% of the large mesh. This might be an unfair question. Can you give me some real numbers, maybe? Are we talking about 1% to 2% is 10 fishermen, 100 fishermen? What in terms of real numbers?
So I'll just give you an example. So we just did our report for our last ITP year. And for our ITP years, they go from September to August. So that's kind of like how it goes fall through summer. So for last year, for example, to get 1% coverage, that was only 88 trips throughout the entire state in the small mesh fishery. So that's the minimum. Our
Okay.
goal, though, is that 2%, and it's 161. And the reason why it's not exactly double is the whole rounding situation. So that's just the small mesh fishery. So for large mesh, obviously it has varied a lot as the large mesh seasons have varied. But for the large mesh seasons, we're kind of aiming for that 7 to 10% on a daily basis.
Well, while you were talking, I just realized I needed to shift my mind. I was thinking in terms of fisherman, but it's actually fishing trips.
Yeah,
Because one fisherman could do 100 trips and one fisherman do 10 trips.
exactly.
So you want a percent. Now, and help me to understand. We're looking at turtles and sturgeon. What do we have a problem? Are they being caught? Or, I mean, why does no one need this information?
So, under the Endangered Species Act, these species have been federally listed as protected species, meaning they're either two categories, either threatened or endangered.
Mhm.
And each of these 5 species of sea turtles have been listed on the endangered species list for a number of years. Sturgeon was only more recently listed. I can't think of the year off the top of my head, but it's within the last, it's within the 2000s they were listed. So that's the reason for why they're looking at these species and why we need to get these permits, because under the Endangered Species Act, that's a requirement.
So I take it then North Carolina is not the only state that has to do this.
As far as I know off the top of my head, I think Georgia also has recently received an incidental take permit for I think sturgeon in their herring fishery, and I think as from what I've heard, a number of other states have also started applying for incidental take permits on behalf of fisheries within their state that interact with endangered species.
But and again, for a point of clarification, all states have to adhere to this, though, correct?
Well, this is just, I mean, the Endangered Species Act, and getting Section 10 these kinds of incidental take permits, any type of non-federally funded activity has to get this when that activity is legal and interacts with a protected species. So, there's, different companies that interact with protected species have to get this. Things like we have to get this as the state, stuff like that. So
Even the federal government, like when they're doing their federal programs, they have a slightly different process, but they still have to get what they call a Section 7 permit.
It is, and what's a section? And briefly, for us lay people, what's a Section 7 permit?
So essentially all of this like Section 7, Section 10, these are all listed under the Endangered Species Act. So Section 7 is just the specific legal jargon that goes with that Endangered Species Act, and that permit allows any time that you'll instantly take these endangered species to make it legal. To get a Section 10, it's slightly different because we're not a federal entity and we're not getting federal funds for it. So there's a slightly longer process for that, but it's very similar.
It's my understanding that you recently attended one of these observer trip scheduling systems or OTSS meetings. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. In Wilmington, North Carolina.
Okay, and you fish out of that general area.
That is correct. Down in the lower Cape Fear and Lockwood Folly River.
Um, Before we went on air, I told you that I went to the division website and I read what they have posted about the Observer program and its intent. And leading into the segment, I read it again. Number one is from attending the meeting with what the division is posting and saying, is it pretty consistent? Do they need an observer because there's like 7-10% of there's like 5 species that they have a federal permit with?
Yeah, it's the federal incidental take permit that they have to abide by. And what they need is 1% coverage in the small mesh gill net and 7% coverage in the large gill net fisheries. And without that coverage, they can shut us all down completely. So we wouldn't be able to fish at all.
All right, let me just for the folks at home that might not be familiar with gill nets, what's the difference between a small mesh and a large mesh, both in size and in species that's targeted?
Okay, small mesh net is less than 5 inches
Okay.
stretch mesh. And people target spots, croaker, mullets, speckled trout, black drum, red drum, such like that. Uh, Large mesh gill net is predominantly flounder fishery, but they do catch a bycatch of black drum, red drum, and sheephead also.
Okay, with this observer, number one, the observer program, are there observers now, by the way, that
I
go on your boat?
I haven't had an observer on my vessel since about maybe 4 or 5 years ago, but I have taken North Carolina Division of Marine Fisheries staff members. I've also taken Marine Patrol, followed me about with their vessel to observe where we were, and we cooperated completely with both entities there.
So if they ask you, say, come aboard.
Yes, I never, I've never resisted the observers coming on my vessel because it is important that we take them to get this coverage so we can fish. If we don't have the coverage, we will not be able to fish. They will shut us down.
All right, what are they? This is going to sound like a goofy question, but with this OTSS, what are they observing? Are they looking for those specific species, or are they documenting everything you catch? What are they observing?
Just basically, I guess the operation, any bycatch that we have, and they document all that. Any protective species that is captured, they document it, how it was released, whether it was alive, dead, or whatever, what the condition of it was. And also during, and they only monitor discards as far as fish go.
What about marketable catch?
From what I understand, I asked that question particularly at the meeting, and they said only discards is what they're going to tally up. And I
Uh,
believe they're going to also, on the discards, it's at the boat mortality. So if it's still alive when we catch it, they'll document that, or if it's dead, they'll document that.
so your actual catch, they are not documenting. So is that correct?
That is correct. I believe that that will be covered in our trip tickets when we land our fish. So there, everything that we have will be monitored, what we'll be doing. And it's pretty stringent this time because what it does, it puts the responsibility solely on the fishermen now to cooperate with this program to go fishing. If you do not cooperate with this program, you're not in compliance and you will get a ticket if you are caught fishing.
So what happens if you're not caught, but you were supposed? Oh, let's go back through. Let me backtrack from that.
Okay.
What happens? You're gonna go fishing. You have to call them, and then you get put in a pool, so to speak, and they, I guess, randomly pull from that pool to put an observer on.
Exactly. What you just stated, we have from Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of the prior week to fishing. We have to call in and say when we're going to go fishing in the next week. And what they'll do, they'll document that we've called in. They'll randomly pick us out, and they'll assign us an observer, and then we'll either get a confirmation code that they give us that allows us to fish without an observer, and then if we get an observer, we'll have the observer on the boat. So when Marine Patrol approaches us, the days that we're fishing, we'll either have an observer on the boat, which shows that we're not in violation, or we'll have a confirmation number that we can give the Marine Patrol officer that we're not in violation. And if we don't have either of those, we are in violation.
All right, I want another point of clarification. Number one, this is everybody's got to either have an observer or a number if you're fishing, but we're talking about, and of course, correct me, not if, but when I'm wrong. We're talking about anchored gill nets. That's it? Is that correct?
That is correct. There are other exempt gears, run around, strike nets, drop nets, and those are nets that you fish immediately after you deploy them. Uh, but the anchor gill nets are the ones that have an anchor at either end, and you drift away. You might set multiple nets. You got to be in attendance somewhat with these nets. And this is internal, the inside waters, not out in the ocean. So that that is a difference. But it and basically I use nothing but a rent-a-rent gillnet, so I won't have to do anything until they start flounder fishing, which will occur in the fall of the year, and that's a large
Um,
mesh fishery, and that's an anchored gillnet.
do you, as the fisherman, have to pay for the observer?
I believe it's incorporated in our license increase that we had a couple of years ago. And I believe that's how this is funded. And I'm not really sure. That's another question I wish I asked if it was federally funded. But I do believe this is a federal program that is uh, helping the state uh, get this mandate done that they have to have to abide by their permit that they have.
Do you know what percentage? Let's just. I'm going to make up some numbers. Let's say there's 100 gillnet anchored gillnet fishermen, and they all submit, "Hey, I'm going fishing." Out of that 100, do you have any idea what the percent of fishermen will actually have an observer go out with them?
My understanding at this point in time that they have 8 observers in the state to cover the 5 regions. That are divided up from A to E, and
Right.
I'm located in the area E. But so it's random, so that they'll be going from boat to boat all the time. And like I said, 1% of the trips that they cover in the small mesh, that's not really a lot of trips. There's not a lot of fishermen like there used to be.
Right.
And so this is and I don't know how many people are going to comply to this. So it might not be as overwhelming as it may first appear to be.
What do you mean there not many people might comply?
I I actually believe that a lot of me and a friend of mine were talking about this. They might tap out quit fishing.
Oh, gotcha. Gotcha. Well, what burden does it put on the gillnet fishermen, these observers, if at all?
Well, it's not really. They have to meet us at the boat ramp when we leave. Whatever conditions it is that we have to work in, they're going to have to work in that type of conditions too. In my case, I fish a lot at night. So if
Right.
they go with me, they're going to have to go, flounder fishing. I have to start before daybreak. And so they'll have to get up in the morning and I'm sure they're willing to do that. That's their job. And it's my job also to be, to fish my nets. Um, so they'll have to go when I go. If there is something that happens, like if I have a breakdown or I'm something happens to where I can't go, I have to notify them, and they will cancel their trip. But then again, they have to go. So and if they don't show up on time, I have to give them fair amount of time to show up. But I have down here in the lower end of the state, we have tides that we have to work around. So when I say go, we got to go.
Right. Right. Um, I'm trying to think. So you're not really it's not an adverse situation for you per se to have a body on your boat. Now, one thing I do want to point out that we're talking small boats.
Oh, yes, most definitely.
We're not talking some, big boat. And it's funny when you say big boat, that's relative. Here in North Carolina, that would be 30 or 40 feet, maybe 50 feet long in the commercial industry. Most of our commercial fishermen are in skiffs, 18, 20, 21 foot skiffs. So, I mean, additional body could potentially create a problem for you, couldn't it?
Oh, most definitely. I run a 17-foot Carolina skiff, and so everything in my boat has a purpose, and
Right.
I got it spaced accordingly. My console is offset to the side to give me more room in the belly of the boat, so to speak. My son has a 16-foot Carolina skiff, and it's very, very cramped in his boat for sure. And then during flounder season, we all look like container ships with all the nets stacked up because we have a certain amount of gear we can set. We try to get as much out as we can, legally. And
Right.
so the best thing to do is on both parts is to cooperate because this is a mandate. We have to do this.
Right.
There's no choice. Otherwise, we will be get a notice of violation, and I don't know what that incurs. Whether it's a financial fee or tied to the dock, so to speak. But none of us want any of that nonsense. So we're going to try. I believe everybody who is going to go fishing is going to try to comply.
Okay. Now, a couple of questions. One is a refresher that the observers aren't observing catch. The trip ticket program takes care of that. The observer is watching, counting the discard, live or dead. And again, that's at the boat. And also, if any of these federally protected fish are encountered. Do you know anything? Did they tell you anything about the observers themselves? Are they marine biologists? Are they students? Who are they?
I didn't dig into that. The observer that's going to work in our area was at the meeting. He's very friendly. He's seems to be a physically fit young man that will be on the vessel. I mean, he's going to have to probably adjust his himself to work on each vessel like he's going to do. And it's short durations on some of our boats. Some of the guys that spot fish and stuff like that leave nets out, for a considerable amount of time, they're going to be out there for a while.
What's the end result? Um, can management measures be made, determined, concocted, whatever that would be adverse to your fishing, or they just need to find out this information? Because I assume they're getting federal funds. The state is to pay on down the line for to have the permits. It's a federally mandated thing, isn't it?
That is correct. They got this. It's called the ITP, Federal Incident Take Permit, which they have regulations that they have to abide by, and there's things that they have to know, and they have to have coverage of the gear that's being used in the water that has adverse interactions with a protected species. And so they're doing their part by establishing this system, this observing system, but it puts it on our shoulders, the fishermen, to comply, to remain in compliance, so to speak, if you see what I'm saying,
Right.
and for them. So basically, it puts it on us because it's allowing us to fish. If we don't comply, we're not going to be able to fish.
Dave, we're running out of time here. Is there anything that you really would like to communicate to the viewing folks? This is going to be sitting on YouTube forever. So, is there anything that you, as a commercial fisherman, as a net fisherman down in the Cape Fear region of North Carolina, that you would like to communicate to the populace?
Well, there's something I want everybody to know specifically about me is that over the years, I served on a dolphin take reduction team. I I served on a large whale take reduction team. I supported the turtle take reduction team in our state and the turtle take reduction FMP that they had or a plan that they had here in our state. I supported that because I wanted to be proactive. I wanted to, like, there were several other fishermen that served out of North Carolina on these committees. It just baffles me that I've devoted my time over the years, my time away from my family, the money that I lost not being able to work because I attended these meetings because it's you go for free pretty much, um, and just let everybody know that it seems like it was all for nothing with some of the things that our past government has done in the ocean to where whales and dolphins were killed because of some of the research that they were doing. So all the sacrifices that we made, area shutdowns, gear modifications, seasonal closures, were probably for nothing. And I hope this other stuff that we're doing now is just not there for nothing because eventually all the East Coast is booming with turtles. Every island out here on our coast in Brunswick County are all bragging about the numbers of turtle nests. We all want to protect sea turtles. There's no doubt about that. But the thing about it is they're increasing and then they decrease the numbers of takes that we're allowed to have because we are allowed to interact with a certain number. But for our numbers to go down and everybody else's numbers to be increasing, something's wrong there. And we feel it's all about funding. The squeaky wheel gets the grease, and I believe that they're, the braggadocious of, yeah, look at all the turtle nests we had this year. super numbers, everybody all up and down the coast. So they get probably additional fundings because everything is working so well. And here we're being, I wouldn't say bashed or anything, but we're monitored more stringently now. And this is the most stringent monitoring I've seen since I've been fishing in my lifetime. So this is something that the fishermen have to bear. And I believe that, and as things go on, there won't be any of us left.
Well, I certainly hope you enjoyed that program that we did about the Observer program it's actually just a couple of species. It's for turtles and for sturgeon. I think it was 5 types of turtles and 2 types of sturgeons. This is what they're trying to observe, but they will observe other things. So I would love to hear your comments. By the way, at the homepage on the YouTube channel, go to post. When you go to post, click on post, you will see surveys, and we have a bunch of surveys up, such as what do you think about the Division of Marine Fisheries? Are they doing a good job? Do you think gill nets need to be banned? Do you think the shrimp trawls need to be pushed to the outside waters? And we also have the survey up that I'm particularly excited about is, do you think that the Division of Marine Fisheries ought to contact every recreational saltwater fishing license holder about upcoming meetings and issues? Have it online where you can just say yay, nay, or whatever. This, in essence, would be the public comment period perpetually for all recreational fishermen. I think it's a great idea. Again, go to post on the main page of the Bill Hitchcock YouTube channel and cast your vote. I'm Bill Hitchcock. You can email me, by the way, billhitchcock@mail.com, billhitchcock@mail.com, billhitchcock@mail.com. Till next time, we'll see you.
Post your questions, comments, and concerns here on YouTube or email them directly to Bill Hitchcock at this address.